Once again, the Tea Party is under fire, facing accusations that some of its members are racist.
Tea Party leaders ask, how can we be racist when many of our members and some of our favorite politicians are black? Paul Strand has the story.
One of the latest charges of racism against the Tea Party came from Indiana Democrat Andre Carson, who said at a town hall sponsored by the Black Caucus this week that
some of them in Congress right now under this Tea Party movement would love to see you and me, I'm sorry, Jim, hanging on a tree.
And that has Florida Republican Allen West furious, even threatening to quit the Black Caucus himself. Republican presidential candidate Herman Cain also defends the Tea Party against charges of racism.
I would know racism if I saw it. I do not see it, nor have I experienced it in the Tea Party movement. It is just an attempt to discourage people from participating in a movement that many people are still in denial.
To call any number of the folks in the Tea Party with no evidence whatsoever a lynch mob is completely beyond the pale.
I stand on the truth of what I spoke. My intentions weren't to hurt anyone or any group.
Causing them feelings they don't know.
Janine Garofalo threw down the liberal gauntlet while blasting Tea Party motives on MSNBC in 2009.
This is about hating a black man in the White House. This is racism straight up. That is nothing but a bunch of tea-bagging rednecks.
A YouTube video called Tea Party Racism shows signs seen at past Tea Party events. They include Obama as a witch doctor, a monkey face next to the words Obamonomics, monkey see, monkey spend, Obama's plan, white slavery, and the zoo has an African lion and the White House has a lion African. Former President Jimmy Carter claimed to NBC Nightly News that an overwhelming portion of the animosity aimed at President Obama is because Obama's black. But Ron Miller doesn't buy it. He's the author of Sellout, a label often tossed at him because he's a black Republican who speaks at Tea Party events. He points out that two of the Tea Partiers' favorite politicians are Allen West and Herman Cain.
Would a racist organization really take that much interest and be that passionate about two men who are obviously black?
Liberal commentator Juan Williams can be a little suspicious about this embrace of West and Cain.
Maybe that they, sensing that they are very vulnerable on this racial issue, are taking to people like West or like Herman Cain because they're seeking to defend themselves against those charges.
But Williams gets upset with those who always drag out the race card.
I just find it abhorrent to American ideals that you would try to defeat your opponent with some kind of blanket charge of racism or bigotry, when in fact there's something else on the table, and it's a very legitimate difference of opinion.
People need to look around them and see that it's not about race, it's about policies, it's about issues.
Paul Strand, CBN News, Washington.
Now, this issue really points out two things. One, on the short term, is it possible when the people in Congress are saying anybody that wants to balance a budget is a lynch mob, and they're racist. Can you ever come to an agreement with that kind of rhetoric being thrown around? And I would say no, you can't. It's going to be very hard in this election cycle to come to any kind of long-term agreement to bring U.S. government spending into line, which is precisely what the Tea Party wants. It wants to do that. But when you're being charged as racist, as a lynch mob, it's going to be very difficult for anyone to come into an agreement in that kind of atmosphere. It also points out a longer-term thing, and this comes from the Bible, where God says, I'll visit the sins of the fathers on the third and fourth generation. It's been more than 4 generations since the Emancipation Proclamation, but we're still dealing with slavery in American society. We're still dealing with racism. And you've got to scratch your head and say, when will it all end? Well, it only ends when we start realizing that we're neither Jew nor Greek, slave nor free, male or female. We're all one in Christ Jesus. If we can come to that agreement, well, then again, we can be one nation under God. Lee Webb has the rest of our top stories from the CBN Newsroom. Lee?
Gordon, more evidence today that the jobs picture is not getting any better. The unemployment rate in August was unchanged at 9.1%. The economy did not add any new jobs, and that is the weakest report in almost a year, and it raises concern that we might slip back into a recession. The United Nations expected to vote within a few weeks on whether to recognize a Palestinian state. A delegation of Christian leaders opposes the Palestinian bid. Laurie Cardoza Moore is president of Proclaiming Justice for the Nations. She visited Jerusalem and issued a proclamation.
We stand firm with Israel against any attempt by the Palestinian Authority, the United Nations, or the Obama administration to unilaterally declare a Palestinian state. We pledge to support the Israeli people and their leaders against any act that would jeopardize the integrity and security of Israel as a Jewish state.
Moore also plans to launch a coast-to-coast campaign in the U.S. to oppose the Palestinian bid for statehood. Gordon?
We encourage you to get involved in this, and we're going to be, CBN Worldwide is going to be announcing a call to prayer for Israel. This is a very serious situation where the UN could create a Palestinian state and have that be the West Bank and its capital, and this is what Yasser Arafat has been claiming for decades. He wants a capital in Jerusalem. So they would divide Jerusalem, they would divide Israel, and do it in a way that there's been no negotiation. And so this newly created state will have never recognized the right of Israel to exist. And so, in effect, you're creating a terrorist state whose main object and main goal will be to drive Israel into the sea. So we're calling people to pray, and pray a very specific verse. This is Ezekiel 37:22. And this is after God has restored Israel, has brought people back into the land. He promises, I will make them one nation in the land, on the mountains of Israel, and one king shall be king over them all. They shall no longer be two nations, nor shall they ever be divided into two kingdoms again. We'll be issuing this call of prayer next week and just encouraging people, and you can start now. Pray for the peace of Jerusalem. Pray for Israel. Pray that this proposal be defeated. Let's go back to Lee for the rest of the news.
Gordon, Louisiana's governor declares a state of emergency ahead of an incoming tropical depression. Meteorologists say the problem is that it could hover over the Gulf Coast for days. That could mean at least 20 inches of rain and massive flooding for an area that was devastated by Hurricane Katrina just a few years ago. New Orleans residents being urged now to stock up on food and water. They're already evacuating personnel from some oil rigs in the Gulf. Tropical storm warnings are in effect now from Mississippi to Texas. If and when it becomes a tropical storm, it will be called Lee. Hundreds of thousands of people along the East Coast are still dealing with the effects of Hurricane Irene. Close to 900,000 are still without power. That's down from 9.6 million at the height of the storm. In Vermont, floodwaters are beginning to recede, giving many residents there a chance to assess damages for the first time.
I never thought that this would ever happen. Never. It's you can see it. It's devastating.
Businesses are still cleaning up. Crews filled 2 dumpsters with what used to be merchandise from this New Hampshire store. Irene has been blamed for at least 46 deaths in 13 states. Folks along North Carolina's Outer Banks are just now returning to their homes following the storm. It devastated the tiny Outer Banks community of Stumpy Point with floodwaters. Wendy Griffith reports that Operation Blessing is making their road to recovery a little easier.
This is Stumpy Point Bay, and it's views like this that cause rational people to live in a place where hurricanes are likely to visit.
You know, we're on the Outer Banks, and that stands for the Outer Banks. I mean, you're out in, in the Gulf Stream.
But last Saturday night, this beautiful scene turned downright scary.
The water was up to here on my waist. I mean, can you imagine? So you know the water was already starting to pour into the house.
About 80% of the homes here in Stumpy Point received some sort of water damage from Irene's tidal surge. Robert and Pam Creef were no exception. They got about 18 inches of water inside their house, but they say thanks to local volunteers and Operation Blessing, their house will be livable again.
God has sent us angels, and I am serious. And yesterday, here come these kids. They've taken it and gone with it. My Bible did not get wet. And today, in the pantry, there was a box, wet, everything in it was wet, but look, dry, that cotton's dry, look at that.
What do you attribute that to?
Well, what do you think? Jesus Christ himself, honey.
When Operation Blessing heard of the great need in this remote part of the Outer Banks, they set up camp at the Stumpy Point Fire and Rescue Station, providing hot meals and washers and dryers, much to the delight of hurricane victims.
Oh, it feels wonderful. This is the third time I've tried to wash my clothes.
Almy and Barbara Gray were not flooded themselves, but Almy's brother's house got hit hard. They took time out from helping him to get a hot meal and were overwhelmed by Operation Blessing's love and support.
Washing clothes and cooking food for people and just being here, you know, just letting people know that there's people out there that care about us, you know.
And when you guys came, it's not only help, it's Christian help.
Deputy Fire Chief Curtis Price says Stumpy Point, home to about 250 people, is a tight-knit community where folks help each other. But with so many people affected themselves, he says Operation Blessing's help has been invaluable.
It's been a blessing. They actually have a crew up with my wife now at my house. My house was flooded.
We need prayers, we need laborers to come and help, and we need cash donations to be able to help in communities like this.
Although life is still far from normal here, most people in Stumpy Point, like Ron and Becky, are counting their blessings.
We're still here.
Wendy Griffith, CBN News, Stumpy Point on the Outer Banks of North Carolina.
Gordon, I continued to be impressed with the staff of Operation Blessing. They don't just barge into a community and say, hey, we're here. They go in and look and listen, see what the needs are, and then they begin to meet those needs.
Bill Horan's number one question is, what do you need? When he goes into an area, he goes to the mayor, to the local authorities and say, what do you need? And then he tries to provide that. What's the biggest need? If you want to help out the hurricane damage, some of us breathed a sigh of relief, but some of us really got hit. And we need to reach out to help those who did. And if you want to be a part of it, all you have to do is call 1-800-759-0700 and say, I want to give. I want to help with the Operation Blessing Disaster Relief Fund. You can also write, just put on the envelope, Disaster Relief Fund, CBN Center, Virginia Beach, Virginia, 23463. There's also a place on cbn.com if you want to rush your gift. You can just click on the icon for Operation Blessing Disaster Relief, and we'll take you to that. And if you want to volunteer this Labor Day weekend for the cleanup in Stumpy Point, North Carolina, all you have to do is call that number, 757-374-0944. Operation Blessing is asking that you provide your own transportation, your own bedding, shower supplies, towels, that kind of thing. But if you want to volunteer to help the people in Stumpy Point, North Carolina, all you have to do is call that number.
A Dutch Iranian pastor is back home after serving a year in prison. Iranian authorities arrested Pastor Vahik Abrahamian last September. They also arrested his wife and 7 other members of his house church. Authorities accuse them of using Christian propaganda against the Islamic Republic of Iran. The group was put on trial several months later. An Iranian judge acquitted everyone except the pastor, but Iranian authorities finally released him this week, and he's been reunited with his family. Operation Blessing, helping people suffering from the effects of leprosy in South Sudan. Lepers are often considered outcasts. A leper colony was set up in the 1970s outside of Juba, Sudan. The disease has been eliminated largely in that community, but the lasting effects prevent many from finding work. OB teams recently traveled to the colony to bring aid. They distributed food, blankets, mosquito nets, lentils, milk, and fish. And you can find out more about what Operation Blessing is doing around the world by going to its website at ob.org.